Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is To All Pioneers, episode number 2. And today I thought it would be cool to talk about track arrangement and like how I have been putting together tracks recently in the last 2 years or so, and how that kind of changed for me over time. Excuse me. If you have any questions at any time about any of the gear that you see here, this is APC40 Midas DM16, a MPC 2000 XL, and a Base Station 3. Hopefully it's not too trippy with the cameras being different times. It was kind of like that last time, but I appreciate you being here. So basically, when it comes to arranging tracks, it's always been a real internal sort of dialogue for me, because I always get really, really focused on the details. And when it comes to focusing on the details, I find that oftentimes, like a lot of folks, I can dive really deep on a particular sound or really deep on a drum break and lose just like a half a day or something. And suddenly my relationship to the track is really different and I don't feel as excited about it, and the way that I'm moving with it is not as spontaneous as it would be otherwise. And it took me a really, really long time to realize this. It took me hours and hours of trial and error of trying to figure out why I found making tracks so difficult, basically. And so, long story short, a friend of mine had this APC 40 and I got it for a birthday present, and I started trying to use these rows of buttons. The camera will catch up in a minute. I started trying to use these rows of buttons to trigger clips to arrange. So in Ableton View, I'll switch to that. I'll bring the volume down a little bit. And I'm assuming everybody can hear me. If you need anything to change, just holler. You can see this is like the clip view, right? Let me smaller over here. So these are clips, right? The squares that you see in the Ableton view, and each of those is a loop, right? Most people know how Ableton works. So I guess, I guess much like any sort of spontaneous music improvisation, you were meant to trigger these blocks and compose music out of them based on Mono Lake's original design of Ableton. Blah, blah, blah. Don't need to go into that too far. But I started, instead of trying to arrange in the other view in Ableton, which is this view that you see everything laid out here, I used to try and do things there first. And for a lot of people that really works, and a lot of my friends arrange that way. For me, I felt like I would get too stuck on the grid. I would get too stuck into the squares, and thus when I would zoom into something here and there would be a transition point of a track going from something high intensity to lower or whatever. Hi, Wyatt. I would really, really agonize over the transition on the screen, but I wasn't really listening to what was actually happening. And so I took a really non-comfortable route to figuring out suddenly, okay, I need to arrange with my ears and not my eyes, because I grew up making music on a computer, staring at a grid, and that's how I thought about putting tracks together. So I wanted to try and gut that a little bit and rebuild what my routine was of making tracks, and think about how can I make arrangements and get tracks to a stage that done is not a real concept, right? Done is a sliding sort of scale, but getting them to a point where they could be sent out and released or something, And so I started trying to arrange using clip view in Ableton using the APC 40, and this suddenly forced me to relearn my tracks in a different way. So when I was making the loops themselves, when I was designing the components of the tracks, I would think about how they would change over time, and then I would let them change when I arranged the track, and I wouldn't so much worry about it at the time of making the loop. And I'll explain more about that, what means later. So essentially, hi Cello, I'm gonna play this new track for you because we started with some unreleased work last time and I really enjoyed that. And then I'm gonna talk about how I arranged it spontaneously, and then what I wanted to do, which could be kind of cool if y'all are into it, was do like live dubbing basically. So I have a couple components on the screen here. The top 2 rows of blocks that you see there are just static loops, and they need extra energy and they need sauce. And so I want to explain to you today what that means for me personally in this time. And if you have any questions about anything involving track arrangement or comments or whatever, just drop it in the chat. I've got it off to the window here. So this is a new piece that I wrote on Monday. And it became something that I was like obsessed with that day. And instead of just spending like a 3 or 4 hour session, I ended up going back to it later in the day. And like, that's always a fun sign, but it doesn't always go that way. So here's a new track. I think it's called Mind is Mind. I'm gonna play you the bounce actually, because that has all of the good stuff. So much like we talked about last week, it's another pad study, you know. And also an example of like this drum break, I flipped this like 3 years ago, and it was just sitting in the clips folder in Ableton, and I just sort of like dropped it in, and the 16th notes in this happened to link into the synth that I had, and like sometimes that's all it takes to sort of have the right conditions for something to come out quickly. Okay, so this is a live take, so you know the volume levels and stuff are all off the cuff. Everything is just straight through the board and into Ableton, and then you know I'll make these changes later. So that's a new track, and that's like a live take. So essentially, my goal for most days basically is to have myself be satisfied with as few components in the track as possible to get me to the point where I'm ready to like lay down a take. Because the faster that I lay down a take, the quicker that I can commit like my freshness to the track. And when I say freshness, I mean like the spontaneity and me knowing the track the least amount. The longer I know the track, generally diminishing returns start pretty fast in terms of like how much time I'm investing into it versus like what I'm getting out of it. And right, this is all totally intangible. It's all here. But oftentimes we are the ones that are creating these like massive obstacles to finish things or whatever, right? So in the last couple years, I've gotten to that point with this APC 40, and just this as not a specific. It doesn't matter that this is an APC 40, right? It doesn't matter that this is that tool. It matters that it gives me a way to very quickly interact with Ableton and get this shit out of my head as fast as possible so I can move on. So if you would have told me like 2 years ago that I could write a track in a day that I would feel is like probably pretty much done, unless and done to the extent that I could give it away, that would seem really impossible to me. Because before, what I imagined as done was a combination of like happy 420 was a combination CST was a combination of like what I thought the track needed, but also this really sort of self-deprecating idea of perfection, that every sound had to be this good and da-da-da-da-da, when all of us know forever that like the best pieces are just a combination of the right elements at the right time, boom, it happens, and that's what it is. Now, without getting too far into theory after that 2 minutes of talking, I don't think that there's necessarily a formula based on like the faster the track comes out, the better it is or whatever. You have to make music the way that it feels natural to you. But for me, what I knew is that like with someone as much anxiety and ADHD and like self-deprecation in my head, I'm happy to see that y'all agree with it. Thank you, Ali, Davis, Jem. I very quickly will start beating myself up about how good a particular part is, and none of that matters. What matters is there's an idea, it appeared, I'm ready to put it down, and so like let me get it the fuck out of my system as quickly as possible, or else it's going to be a slow bleed, probably. That track could turn out to be cool in the end, but you're probably going to have to leave it for a while and come back to it. And I don't say you, I say one would probably have to leave it. For me, I have to be like, okay, fuck you, I can't go any longer with you, and I will literally write pause in the file name, and so that if I open the folder and I see pause on it, I know that like I was there, whatever the date is. I tried to do something and it didn't work for me. What has made me happy to know now is that if I go back to those pieces, they can be finished. Not all of them. Some of them have to die, and that's just the nature of the fucking beast. You have to be okay with that, right? That's a much longer thing we can talk about another day. But with arrangement, for me, the idea is I got a loop, I'm excited with it, and it started with this pad, right? I'm just going to break it down, and if this becomes really tedious, hopefully I have the sensibility to move on from it. But I'm going to do a little bit on this, and then I'll move into the live dubbing thing, and then we'll keep it moving. So it started with this, let me see if I can get this. So again, I'm talking a lot about doing these like pad studies, right? Like you can see, I think you'll be able to see pretty clearly the notes. Yeah, okay. So this is not a complicated progression at all. I literally was just hitting the keys. I don't know how to play keys. But what I knew is that when it had like resonance and some texture underneath it, it really felt comfortable for me to hear this over and over and over again. So the other thing is that you'll hear, this is the dry sound. Let me flip it over to the gear camera here. Sorry, y'all. Give me just 1 second. Cool. All right. So you should be able to hear me now, yeah? Yeah? Okay. Cool. So you have this pad right here, and it's just running into this pedal, and this is enough for me these days. I've found in the pandemic, I'm a very simple creature. I want to like sit in front of my console, put some, oh cool, okay, so thank you for that. So this is the pad. The soft synth is the DX7 VST, which I talked about last time from Arturia. It's incredible. So that's the pad on its own. Super simple. And that's the delay, which I have on like a low bit rate so that it starts falling apart as it goes out. And then I slowly added, here's another good point. When it comes to writing melodies, I don't really know what I'm doing. So for me, I want to try and get out the melody again as quickly as possible with a couple little changes that I think would entertain me over time, over the course of a track, and then like move on. So you can see on the left-hand side of the Ableton screen, there's just like a couple, 4 changes. And all I did was add a couple different notes for each one, and that's it. So I'll just play a couple of them, I'll play them in a row, and you'll hear how they change just slightly. And so you're getting an idea of like the way that I'm creating shifts in mood and balance in the track is I'm just running a pad into a delay with a filter on it, and that alone is a ton of mood. That's a great comment. So in a way, like this shit almost to me, these tracks to me are almost sounding like shoegazy in a way these days. It's just like I'm very stoned and I want to hear something soft and gentle. So I made those very quick, slight melodic progressions. I had a very simple shaker. I've used this shaker in like the last 4 or 5 songs that I've made, and I like normally would care about that, but I want to say to you today that like I'm just trying not to care. Like if there's 2 of my tracks that have the same shaker in it, or 3, if I'm putting some effort into making them sound a little bit different, if someone thinks less of my track for that and I'm feel good about it, then I can't lose sleep over that. And that is quite different than the way that I used to think about this kind of stuff, that there had to be something reindented every time or whatever. So I'm just slowly adding a small group of a small group of loops that can give me enough freshness, and then I just want to record the track. So there's this loop, that's me just like making a little shaker sound into my SM58, and then running it through delay, and it's pitched up a little bit. Then there's this. And so you can see now, let me flip over to the gear camera, and hopefully it is caught up. Not quite, but all of these tracks are broken up across the board. So and now you're basically seeing like how the track is put together. And this for me was like a revolution. I never used to make music this way. I used to make music with the blocks, and I would slowly line the blocks up and drag them across the screen and get them to the point where I felt like it made sense, but I don't think I was sitting and listening to the track and thinking about what I needed next out of the arrangement. And when I say that, I mean like I like to think like a dancer, or think the way that I would in the DJ booth. Oftentimes the dancer is the way that produces the most interesting output for me. I think about how my body would interact with the track. I think about like what I would expect next, where I would want something to happen. And I hope that doesn't seem too ridiculous, but that was like the thing that made me really... I'll check that out later. I will. Oh, the Stream Deck. Yeah, I've seen that. I did think about getting that. So where was I? Thought here. Anyways, so arranging became this thing that I devoted a lot of time to when I was writing music, because I wanted to have more fun. And so here we are. In the way that I do it now. Yeah, thinking like a dancer. Thank you, Ali. So I found that thinking like a dancer helped introduce different patterns to me that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Because when you're looking at squares on a grid, when you're looking at something that's quantized, it's easy to know where to put the blocks, but it's more exciting for me to try and think the way that I would want to move on the dance floor. And that requires me, again, to just like step back a little bit from the track and not rush too much and get too caught up in being excited, and just like look at objectively and think about like how would I like to move. So we have these components. So the entire track started with this crazy like 16th note thing. And this is running into the delay pedal as well. And this is another thing that I found to be like really, really helpful for me using a mixer, is that having one effects pedal to run one send to, because of how I have it routed, it just makes me make a decision. And again, this is for like my very fickle brain. The sooner I can get myself on the board with a thought, and I can commit to something, the better it's gonna go. So started with the 16th note and slowly started bringing in these other pieces. And so the way that I arrange music now is I have all these loops going and I send them out to this board, and then I run one set of stereo back into it's probably that. Thank you, Anne. I run one set of stereo back into Ableton, but then I also let it arrange underneath in here while I'm tracking, because I want both this thing that you see at the bottom. Let me switch back to the Ableton view. I want both this like stereo recording of the first performance of the track, but I also want the MIDI and like the actual squares so that I can go in and put my hands on it later. And that allows me what I consider to be like, for at least for me right now, the best of both worlds, which is like the ability to put my hands on the thing later and change it if I need to. But also, if the first take is amazing, I can try and stick to that as closely as possible. So that's why you see it laid out like this, with the track on the bottom and then all of the blocks on top, because I want to know that it's a one-to-one representation of one of the takes, and then I slowly start to move in a different direction with it. And that has made making electronic music feel more musical for me. And like, for someone who doesn't have any classical music training at all, that's been really exciting. So now I have to make a decision. I'm committing it to a stereo track. It's not the last option that I have. I have another resort in case it goes wrong. But if this turns out to be really good, then maybe I just keep it. And especially now, because none of us are like making music particularly for dance floors, at least within the relative amount of future. Like, I'm sure we're making music for dance floors, but sonically, I think, and I mentioned this last time, music can sound a little different now. And maybe it's better to just like capture a recording without perfect fidelity if it is the sort of the natural way that you performed it. So that for me has been like an exciting new avenue for me to chase with arranging tracks. And so I'm just going to do a quick dub of the pad part on screen and with the camera up, so you can see how I would approach just like actually recording the sounds and doing something live and automating parts. And then I will move on to like a sample flip, and then I'll do another unreleased track. And please, if you have any questions about anything you see, or even if something's off topic, just drop it in the chat. We can talk about it. And thank you so much for already asking questions and staying locked with me. So I'm going to take this pad here. I really agree that it also really affects your DJing a lot to think like a dancer. I think that it is like just a really powerful tool to pull you out of the head case sort of approach to writing music or creating things. One of my favorite things in the world is beginner's mind. I'll say that for 2 seconds. That, you know, I think it's a Zen Buddhist concept initially, but the way that like surfers look at it, I guess I was told, is the idea of like swapping boards lets you see someone else's perspective, because each board and its owner ride a particular way. And I think that like you can approach music making that way too when you collaborate with other people or you observe other people making music, is that you can try and go at it from that example. You can ride their metaphorical surfboard in that direction and see if writing music is also feels good in that direction or in that stance, or however you want to say it. I think these things can kind of transmute to any form of expression. And so I don't know, I'm always trying to capture, heard like me say fast or quick over and over and over again. And I, never harsh or rash or rushed, but like spontaneous and fresh and new is what I'm trying to get to with the track, and I think hearing that like Sun Can't Compare got written in Larry Heard's kitchen in like an hour or two, those sorts of stories, I don't think that that mythology can be really helpful for a lot of us, because it seems like you have to capture lightning in a bottle, and it's not about that. It's about just like hitting the pavement and being in here, and then just like quickly grabbing the thing when it feels right and then keeping it moving. And for me, that has been like the most freeing experience of writing music, because prior to that, it was pretty shitty often. I did it because I love it, but like the experience of writing it was something that I would avoid a lot. And now I don't necessarily run towards it. It's still really easy for me to avoid it, but I'm much more excited about the act of creation, because for me, it leads more frequently to things that make me happy. It's pretty nice, at least a decent place to be at based on where I used to be. So here's the stab. I'm going to just quickly route some audio in, and then I'll do a quick live take with the EQ and the delay, because I want it to be quite expressive. Now, the way that I have my computer set up is I can't get this audio separate without muting everything, so you're just going to hear the pad for a little bit, and I'm just going to like do some gestures on it. All right. So, kind of zoned out on that shit for a second. I hope that wasn't too boring. Okay, so that's like how I approach dubbing specific sounds when I'm making tracks. It is something that like makes me feel really excited about recording music now, having a mixer, because before I didn't have the ability to like DJ my tracks when I was making them, and I really, really love that. It makes me feel like I'm making music. And sometimes when I'm like in Ableton doing stuff, don't feel like I'm making music, and that's okay. And it's not a comment on anything besides like I'm a fickle person and I need excitement. So that is like the live dub of a pad sound. Now it looked like I was kind of blowing out the levels, so it might be, some recording might have been too loud, but that would have been a totally acceptable take for me. And granted, it makes it a little difficult not hearing the rest of the track, but at the same time, I'm trying to make the sound breathe in the way that it asks. And sometimes it's okay to just have that playing alone in the headphones and for me to just get that take on the ground. Or an alternative is that I will literally just start with that. Let me switch it. I'll start with this long recording of just one sound. And that sometimes is what I want to do for the day, or not even what I want to do, but sometimes that's what I can do for the day's work in the studio. And sometimes that has to be okay, you know? Sometimes like just getting down a 4.5 minute recording of me playing on the mixer with a sound and having it dubbed out and reverbed and whatever, and getting that recorded means that like in 2 weeks when I'm making some sketch, I'll throw that in there, and then like, oh my God, a song's almost finished. It's all about creating moments like that. And so for me, this is how I arrange tracks now. I will go through at least a couple more of the sounds in there and get those tracked with delay in them, and then I'll mix the track down. It would be better if I had a big enough studio to do everything at the same time. Don't yet. So this is the way that I do it, and I try to do it as I've described, in a way that like keeps it fresh for myself and keeps that beginner's mind right front and center with the track. I made this on Monday. I've already listened to it probably 100 times. I've got like a couple more sits with it for it to be done, or else I have to stop for a couple months or like a month or something. That I know is like how I do music now. And the sooner I know that about myself, like, or the sooner I learn that about myself, the better it made the process for me. So I'm gonna look to some loops that I made earlier this week, and I'll play around with like another sort of spontaneous idea moment. And in the meantime, I'll play just something, a track that I found recently to share with you. Let's see. And if you have any questions while I get this project loaded up, or any comments or something you want to talk about, just holler. Thanks y'all for being with me. I'm having a blast as always. Here we go. Oh, that's a little tune. All right. I'll be right back with you as I open up this other. Yeah, Huey, I very much feel you. Yeah, I mean, I would also agree, Gusto, that's a real one. If you just like sit at the table, if you sit at the desk every day consistently, you're making something, you know? Like, I don't think you have to sit every day, and I don't want to like guilt trip anybody for feeling bad about that. There are some weeks that I don't sit. Like last week I didn't write at all. It was only a week that was about like preparing, you know? But some weeks I work 3 or 4 days, and I can say one of my surest things in music is the more frequently I'm working, the quicker I am, or I should say the more frequently I'm arriving to things that make me happy. And that's definitely something for sure. Let's see this project. Yeah, Ellie, I would definitely agree. I mean, I've made some of my favorite stuff in an hour. I think, the sooner that we remove these fucking capitalist shackles of time to production, like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I would say also, like, we're in a time that is quite conducive, obviously. When you have a 9 to 5, it's difficult, but the whole thing is about being kind to yourself, like, that for me is crucial. And even if I don't have very much time, if I sit down and I can be nice to myself and like have a nice little moment and then move on, then like I want that to be what I walk away feeling. Let me see this. This is what I'm playing right now. I just dropped it in the chat. Alright, let's see. Cool. Alright. Yeah, the drum and bass that I played at the beginning, let me grab the link right here, 1 second. Need to shrink that chat window, it's huge. Screen. Alright, here is the opening drum and bass track. Alright, so, I've been sampling a lot of documentaries. I talked about this the last time we did the stream. And this is a sample that I flipped from a documentary I was watching the other day, and I took a piano sample that I actually thought on the last stream was in a different time signature, but it's actually not. But I flipped it, I slowed it down, I did some other stuff, so I was going to open this up and see if I could make something with it real quick, just as, another sort of spontaneous moment in the stream, and then I'll go to like another unreleased new piece of music and chat about arrangement a little more. Right. So, here's this weird sample. Super beautiful. So this is like a piano solo slowed down by 24 cents and then run through a pitch shifter. Oops, excuse me. So I'm gonna see about putting some drums underneath this, and I'm gonna try to do it on the MPC first. Make sure this is coming through clear. Pardon the. Okay. Mic is back on. Thank you, Ali. All right, so let's see. Can you hear me now, everybody? Should be good. Okay, so I have this this break that is already loaded up on the MPC. So let's see what happens here. All right, let's see. You know, you just put a little delay on something and it kind of takes care of all your problems. And I just tend to try and leave like a send sort of slightly on at all times, and it honestly, oftentimes what I would be complaining about or something being too dry or lacking movement is just like taken care of by leaving some shit on and seeing what happens. What's going on here? All right, so oftentimes what I find with breaks is if I get stuck on one loop, it might dry out for me. So I'm just going to quickly drum out a couple different ones. Since that one came so quickly, I'm going to see if I can just spit out a couple different patterns. And that way, later down the line, when I start to narrow stuff down for arrangement, I'll have like a couple different options of things to choose from. Cool. we go. Okay. So that's 2. I would normally do more, but since we are together... I think I like that second one more, but I'm not even going to go back and listen to the other one yet. I'm just going to move on to the next drum kit. Yeah, I'll move over to the base station while I wait for these kits to load. We're working on hardware. And they are, hopefully you can't hear them doing jumping jacks upstairs because it's 6 o'clock. So it's time to do a workout, I guess. All right, I'm moving the mic. Bear with me here. So, obviously that main thing is so melodic. I'm not really going to be able to compose anything that can compete with that. So my goal is to just like try and lay some rhythmic things around it and to see what happens. It also just might not be suited for a track over at this present moment. That's also add some MIDI to this so I can capture that little. I want to add some other on top of it. Really just. Ironically, we've never had a noise issue up until like through maybe a week ago. I played a 5-minute MS-20 drone track and at 11:45 in the morning, and that's what got the first stomp of a year in this apartment. Impressed. so that's kind of cool. So the one thing about this is that the automation that I just did on the filter, because there's delay in recording, it's also off. So I fix the timing on the. So you see. I don't know if the piano actually belongs. It's a little bit off time. So again, this is like because it's live, or because it's going into the machine and I don't have really good timing. You can see a little air. Timing is not great. Not great. It's kind of cool. Alright, so that's enough drums for the general vibe, and I'm going to just move on to another sound. Again, because it's treating me nicely lately. See if there's anything with that piano sample. Sound. Wow. So that right there tells me that I should definitely give that sound more space, because it kind of sounds like Angel. I'm going to bring the mic a little bit closer. Thank you, Ann. it doesn't really make that much difference. All right, let's see what we have for a synth. Sound is interesting. Pattern is not great, but let's see. So I really want to turn this sound into something really sinister, and then basically that idea I think is probably where it's going to be for the time being. Trusting the instinct, but I think this is definitely something that I would come back to. I'm just going to play with this sound really quickly and see where we can push it to, just as this sort of like really haunting textural pulse. This is sort of similar, it seems, in texture to the thing that I made earlier this week. I think that you can see this plugin right now. Yeah, I would highly recommend this plugin right now. It's free until the end of June. It's from Sound Toys, and it features, like, I think most of their plugins that you can sort of put them together as a chain. I think it's on sale for like $100 right now, and I actually might buy it. I've never, I think I've bought one VST in my life. This introduces a little bit too much, but I think it's you can use it for free until the end of June. Let's see. That's pretty sick. I'm happy with that as just like a quick sketch. It has interesting elements. I think the piano and that kind of work together. The drums, maybe. Maybe I would use the drums. I'm gonna quickly record them, and then I'm gonna move on to another demo to share with you, or another new track to share with you. Something. Thank you for sticking with me, y'all. If stream looks weird at all or anything's going on, just give me a shout and I'll make sense. So what I'm going to do really quickly is just record in the MPC just so I can get quick image of what I just wrote. See here, come through. Cool. All right, so there's that. There's another quick sketch sample flip. It was okay. Again, like, you know, all of those elements came fast, but I also, yeah, the sound twist thing is incredible. Definitely, Steven. Another thing that came out really quickly, but this on any day, if I had made this loop and I was alone in the studio, I would probably spend another hour playing with that because there's already 4 elements there that I feel are, or 3 elements that are contributing something for. You would only need maybe 2 or 3 more to, if they were impactful and hitting, in order to make a full arrangement on something. So just as like an idea, if I was going to arrange the track, let me show you what I would do here. So we have the MPC, and so I'll just show you kind of how I would move in between them. Let me get the track. Figured that would be it. So So basically what I would do here is I have the MPC and I have the APC. And so I have just a couple loops going and I have some of them going to the board here. And so generally what I do is I move between these 3 things, turning things on and off. So basically muting and soloing things and sending some things to delay, as you've seen. So just like a quick 1-minute sort of example of how I would go about starting the track. Let's see here. All right, let's say I would start it with the piano. The piano's not totally on time, so not the exact example that would be most ideal, but you can see like it's just a question of getting to a place where I feel like I know where everything is, and then I just try to like turn off my editing brain and just like let it go. And so I want to, the tenets that I've laid out today that I'm like always seeking is getting the idea out in a fluid way, in a nice, kind way, but quickly, seeing what I have and knowing that it can be turned into something comfortably, and then just like committing to making a recording, getting that 2-track recording, getting those blocks on the grid. And then if I have to walk away from it, then I'm going to walk away from it. But I want to know that I've invested that time. And when I invest that kind of time, I know that I feel more happy with the results I feel more happy with the tracks that I get out of that experiment. So that's the arrangement sort of topic for today. And that's sort of the way that I approach arranging. It's like, get the shit out, get it down. Hugh, I saw your comment about EQing. So I feel like my mastery of mixing or whatever is like pretty loose, to be honest with you. I print a lot of EQ into things when I'm dubbing, for example. That pad that I dubbed, I was fucking with the EQ the whole time. So it's multiple layers of things, but I think like, yeah, I try to get my ideas out before I start dealing with finite sort of math parts of the track. I try to get those ideas out before I deal with the math, before I start digging in on like the real sculpting, because a lot of times the EQing that I'm doing when I'm making the track is like cosmetic, like it's like aesthetic addition and sculpting, and not so much like things are being I'm not adjusting things so they can sound the right way, because I don't necessarily always know that the way that that's supposed to be. I have a friend of mine, this amazing techno producer, who mixes a lot of my records, because he knows sort of like what I'm looking for and the distance between what I turn in and what I have. See what you say. Yeah, I think that you're totally right, and I fall asleep doing that all the time. Hi Martin, what's up? I think that I definitely I fall off all the time. Yeah, separating left and right brain. Exactly, Davis. So that's a really good way to put it. Separating the analytical from the creative. That has really helped from making my writing process a lot easier and a lot kinder. And easy just being that, yeah, and I would agree, Steven. Yeah, I think mixing as you go along is another thing that you can get used to. And there's that fine line, right? Like between what Hughie's talking about like falling into the details on a track for too long versus not paying attention to it all. And then after you get done, having to do a lot of cleanup. So it's sort of like in professional kitchens or whatever, like they say clean as you cook, because it makes the job easier all the way through. Keeping your project file tidy is something that I think can make a difference. You're gonna, as I do more of these, you'll see a consistent theme is like the goal is to just like keep it nice and clean and like make it easier for myself, because like none of this is actually easy, right? And so like whatever can make those 2 points connect faster is the best for me. So let me see what else I have to share with you. Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing, so I cooked professionally for 10 years, from like age 14 to 23 and change, so almost 10 years. And let me make sure I save this. Really fucked me up when I started connecting the production life with the kitchen life. All of those things are such analogs. The same with DJing too. Like DJing is cooking, production is cooking. I actually have like a whole folder of cooking gifts for one of the designs of one of the shows. Like that is definitely back real quick. Project loads up. I'm gonna play you something else unreleased, and then we'll almost be near the end of the stream here. But I'm gonna talk a little bit, or I'll do another little creative flip on a sample that I have set aside. Okay, yeah, I know that I get a little bit too far from the mic. Just 1 second here, and I'll be right back with another joint. Thank you for sticking with. All right, cool. So I made some mic adjustments. We should be better now. Cool. All right. So here's another live track, and this one was recorded in a similar way as what I talked about last time. Is that like I have the blocks, but I also arrange the track. This is another one off the album that I'm making right now. I'm pretty sure it's my first album, which is exciting, but you know, it is what it is. So this track is called "You Will Be a Maker." That is not the track. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's definitely another pad study.
He's saying, I'm going to use music to try to convince you to grasp in time a love supreme so that you won't remain just a prisoner of time. You will be a maker, a creator of a better world.
All right. So that's called You Will Be a Maker. Thanks everyone for your comments. I'm happy you dig it. The pad is not from the bass station because the bass station is a monosynth. So I use that pretty much primarily for basses and weird arpeggios and percussive sounds. The pad is, I believe, another fucking sound from that DX7 VST. Yeah. So it's another sound from that DX7 VST. A lot of this, and then the sample at the end, yeah, and it's Cornel West talking about John Coltrane.
And he's saying, I'm going to use music to try to convince you to grasp in time a love supreme so that you won't remain just a prisoner of time. You will be a maker, a creator of a better world.
Yeah, I love that. Still got some work to do on that. The mix is pretty off because it's a live take, and I was like really excited when I was making it. I've been somehow like these tracks. I'm glad you like it, Huey. Somehow these tracks have been like, they make me kind of want to mosh in some way, but also they're very chill and super stony. And I don't know what they are stylistically, whether it's like jungle or drum and bass or liquid or whatever. I don't really care. So you've heard quite a few of the ones from this new record, I think, so far. Let me see if there's anything else I can share with you. Yeah. I don't think that I played this one last time, so please stop me if I did. Thanks everyone for your comments. So I don't, I mentioned an album, like I've never put out an album before. I'm also not really thinking a lot about it in terms of like, I think I spent a really long time. The reason I haven't put out an album is because I've just like I really built that up in my head as some grandiose thing. But in these last couple of years of finally coming into a real understanding of my own musical practice, I realized like a first album is just like, it's an album. And like I said on the last stream, like I think we all have a fairly unlimited number in us if that's what we feel like doing, if that's what the practice is. So I'm gonna put out this record and then I'll put out however many after that. And I'm not trying to like attach any more value to the idea of like this like monumental discography of all hits or whatever. I think I had a really sort of capitalistic approach to looking at how I was creating music in terms of how it was going to be consumed and how it would have impact, etc. And I think that what I learned from people who make and create, who not just make but release and give to other people a great deal more music than I do, is that they're far less precious about it and they put it on less of a pedestal. It can still be super sacred, right? But all of that sort of building up to this idea of the first album just really knocked the wind out of me for a really fucking long time. And then it just so happened that I got to a place where I felt like it was time. And that's, I guess, all you can't really force it, right? That's the classic. That's not news here. So here's another piece. This is actually, you know what? I might have played this. I think I actually played this last time. Let's see. I think I have one. Let's see here. All right, 1 second here. Let me put on another piece while I load this up. I'll put on some Moma Ready here. All right.
There will come a time in your life when you will ask yourself a series of questions. Am I happy with who I am?
Am I happy with
Am I happy with the people around me?
And this, of course, is the incredible Momo Reddy.
With what I'm doing?
Am I happy with what I'm doing?
Am I happy with the way my life is going?
Am I happy with the way my life is going?
Do I have a life?
Do I have a life?
Or am I just living?
Or am I just living?
Do not let these questions restrain or trouble you. Just point yourself in the direction of your dreams. Find your strength in the sound. And make your transition.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. Martin, I love that. I mean, you're certainly someone who's put out a ton of really excellent material. And it seems like you just do it when you feel like it.
Much time thinking and not enough doing. Did I try my hardest at any of my dreams? Did I purposely let others discourage me when I knew I could?
I mean, Ali, how many albums have you put out? A lot, right? And you don't, I'm assuming you don't attach a great deal of weight to the idea of an album beyond the thing that you want to make at this point. Yeah, I'm definitely not looking forward to second album. That kind of scares me. But again, it's like putting yourself that far ahead of the game is not going to be helpful in the end, you know? All right, let's see here. Definitely have a playlist of new material and I'm not sure that I'm gonna remember it otherwise. Let's see. All right. That track is The Amazing Wyatt. All right, so here is something else. See what it got. All right, so I think I played 1 and 2. Cool. So here's another new one. This is called Together We Are Without. This is probably the one that I think is sketchy enough, and it's the most like what I would consider traditional dance music. But this is another thing I think for the same project, but it needs a little bit more work than the other ones. Ooh. Is the Ableton window back now? Oh, Martin, that's really interesting. Huh. you can see, this one is definitely more scrappy. It's more like quote unquote house music or whatever, but that fits somewhere in the continuum of what I've been making. So I just pulled up this thing that I was working on. Thanks, Steven. I just pulled up something that I had been working on. Just as like the last little session for today, I'm just gonna play with another demo and see what I can do very quickly in front of you, just pulling it up fresh. I wrote this, I think, last month. Let me move this out of my way. I wrote this last month, and I haven't heard it since then. So let's see. such a weird bass line. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty twisted. Let's see what else we can do. Just like super bleak. It's very strange. I don't know if I would use this, but it is very unsettling, and I enjoy these sort of drony. So that's pretty cool. Some of the hi-hats are kind of off, but the lead twinkly sound. I'm glad you would play it, Davis. The lead twinkly sound again is that fucking DX7. When I found something that works, I will use it over and over and over again. All right, so there's a little something. That bass is interesting, and that percussion, I'll probably record that over the top of it. It's a little 10 minutes of sketchy moment. That's gonna wrap it for today. So thank you for tuning in for the chat. And if you have any like questions, I think opening it up for like Q&A, if there is any questions at the end, is pretty traditional. So if you have any, I'll play another tune real quick and drop any in the chat in like the next couple minutes, and I would be happy to answer any questions really. Thank you so much for tuning into this second stream and for listening to me talk about the thing that I care about in the world besides family and my partner. So I'm gonna put on a tune. If you have a question, drop it in the chat. If not, I hope that you have a really good rest of your day. I'll see if I'll do another one of these next week or if I'll wait a little bit longer. But either way, I'm going to continue doing these for sure, because they're also super inspiring to me. Last week after I did this first one, I felt incredible. I was on an incredible high. So especially during this time, it's been great for me. And I hope that you've enjoyed it too. And if there are ideas or any thoughts that you have for making this process better, I'm going to try and tweak and improve the stream every time that I do that. We have a new mic situation here, which I hope improve the audio quality a little bit. I'll have a boom for it so it's not in the way next time. And I'm going to try and just like make this interesting as possible. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have a question, go ahead and ask. And if not, I'll see you very soon. Please, everyone, be safe. Yes, please. Huey, send me some music. Everyone on here, if you want to send me music, please